Hello, I'm going to speak to you today about my feelings about a lot of things that I've heard and read about ADHD and about some things that I know because I'm very familiar with it. First of all, let me begin by saying to you, ADHD, let me explain to you what ADHD is first of all. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. That is very key, the last couple words of that, because that's exactly what it is. ADHD is a disorder. It's a disorder of hyperactivity, a problem of not being able to focus, being overactive, and not able to control behavior, or a combination of all. Not too long ago, ADHD was said to be a myth, fraud, or benign condition. It was also said that this was just because it was a myth that teachers didn't want to do their jobs. They just decided that kids need to be medicated to make them have an easier day at school. And there was also a myth around saying that it was just too much TV, so the children were emulating what they saw on TV, and that in return made them appear to have ADHD. Excuse me. Dr. David K. Union of Harvard, the director of the Learning Disabilities and Behavior Neurology program at Boston Children's Hospital, says that ADHD is a really complex cognitive phenomenon that has a lot of pieces to it. It's a big deal. ADHD is nothing small. That's a very serious medical condition. I'm sorry, it's a medical condition that can become very serious. There were teachers, like around the 2002-ish, there were actually teachers who actually demanded that parents medicated their children and was told that if they didn't, that they would call 911. That's the first point I would like to argue. It would lead me to believe, if I had a meeting as such, I would be led to believe that at that point my child is no longer a student, but instead a label. Teachers are not doctors. Teachers are not doctors, and they should not diagnose or they should not give medical advice, because that's not their jobs. However, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act expressly forbids school personnel from requiring a child to take meds and for also diagnosing that child, because that's nothing that they can do. This is actually a mandate from the rights law way, to special education law and advocacy. The second point I would like to touch on is research. This one is kind of sketchy. Research has shown that kids low in omega-3 fats are significantly more likely to be hyperactive, struggle with learning disabilities, and display behavior problems. I want to argue that one because I'm very, very familiar with ADHD. And when I first became familiar with ADHD, the study about the omega-3 fish oil and things like that was never ever part of any conversation that I had read about or whatever. Actually, I have a son that was diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago, and I was told that his ADHD could have possibly came from the fact that he was born with micronium on the brain. Now, here's an argument with that too. It seems to me like there's so many experiments and things going on, and sometimes I just feel like the researchers and the doctors, they just don't know. I don't agree with the fact that it's come from micronium on the brain. I'm sorry, I agree with the fact that it comes from micronium on the brain. I do not agree with the fact that it could just be deficiency low in ADHD. The reason I stated is because, first of all, when you have these very young children that are not of school age, how can you really tell that they're really just not being themselves, or how can you really tell that they're actually struggling with a problem? You really don't know. ADHD also can be caused in part by imbalance of chemical messengers that affect behaviors. Now, I'm not going to argue that point. I really 100% agree with that point. ADHD, okay, the last point I would like to touch is ADHD can be stopped with discipline and taking things away. I found that in an article, and I just simply typed in ADHD discipline. There is no study shown anywhere in the world that you can discipline a child out of ADHD. If your child is born with if your child has ADHD, the only thing that will help your child is medication. Your child has to be medicated. The first step, okay, there's no teachers, parent, or authority figure that can discipline ADHD out of a child. There's no study that shows this. Children, also, the last point I would like to touch on is that all children grow out of ADHD. I 100% do not agree with that. That children grow out of ADHD. There are many blogs, there are many articles, there are many stories on ADHD. It's not true. True. Children do not grow out of ADHD. The symptoms may change, the symptoms may settle down because that child is getting older, more mature. Now, so in other words, the ADHD, the symptoms change throughout the lifespan. So as your body change, the chemistry in your body change. So the ADHD changes with it. Like if I had ADHD at 5, at my age now, I'm not going to have the same behaviors and hyperactivity that I had at age 5, because the more my body progressed and my chemicals change, so did the ADHD change. So in closing, I would like to say there are a lot of myths about ADHD. There are a lot of things going on with ADHD, and there are a lot of people that think that they can diagnose ADHD. If you believe that your child has ADHD, you need to go to a physician, talk to the teachers, have an IEP, and make sure you know your rights. And again, you can never ever discipline ADHD out of a child. It lessens with the chemistry in your body as you grow. Thank you so much.